Hello, my name is Paul Stone. I play for Northampton Outlaws. I'm playing number 99, usually play centre back to wing. I'm straight, my pronouns are he and him. Tonight I'm interviewing NBV, Nick Boyd Vaughan. Do you want to introduce yourself?
I think you've just done it for me. So, hi, I'm Nick Boyd Vaughan. I am a utility back for Northampton Outlaws. My player number is 17. I'm gay, and my pronouns are he and him.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Nick. First question. What comes to mind when you think of LGBT spaces, such as the Boston or Q space?
I don't know where Q space is. What is Q space?
It's been described to me. I wasn't aware either. Simon said it's for younger LGBT people to go to.
Oh, smashing
Area.
Well, ways of describing the Boston. Well, actually, I've got to say, when it comes to LGBT spaces, I live in London now, and I basically like the breadth of LGBT activity and space in London is huge, whereas in Northampton it is minuscule. When I was growing up, there were two gay bars in Northampton. There was the Boston Clipper, as it was known then, and the Jolly Anchor, spelled Anker, with an anchor symbol in front of it, so everyone called it the Jolly Wanker. And it basically, the Jolly was the sort of the club, and the Boston was seen as a kind of old man's pub. Well, the Jolly ended up closing down, and the Boston became the only place. So when I kind of moved back, I moved off and went off to uni in Cardiff, and then when I came back to Northampton, there was only one place to go to, which was the Boston. Refitted, turned into a club with a much more sort of diverse crowd within it, and it's it's those kind of places within these small towns where people actually can just be themselves. They don't need to worry about kind of being just like chatting up people in there. They can have fun, they can feel relaxed, they can dance like a moron like me, or like a dance student like the majority of gay guys seem to be able to be. And yeah, I mean, it's that kind of community feel to it, which just creates that sort of sense of a home away from home, and the idea that you can walk into a place and feel like that. And it doesn't matter, I can go to a gay bar anywhere in the UK, and I can feel that kind of relaxed feeling. Now, Q Space sounds amazing, but when I was a kid, we didn't have anything like that. There was nothing at all. You went out and you found your own family, and you sort of, by hit and miss, trial and error, you found people who were comfortable with who you were, or maybe like you, and they became the sort of the support that you had. Especially, like up until the age of 16, when I had a fake ID and was able to go to the Jolly. There was no kind of euphorum, there was no kind of protective bubble that you could go into and be who you are.
That's fantastic. Very concise answer. No, it's when you're saying it feels like a home, and it feels like somewhere where you can be yourself. I've heard that echoed a lot of times, and that's I think that's very important. But somewhere it feels like, I suppose, safe.
Yeah.
In words, and they can be who they want to be, effectively.
Yeah, I mean, there's still this kind of, I think times have changed a lot. I think times have changed in the last 10 years or so. And certainly kids growing up today I know that there are still things that they have to deal with. There's still elements of homophobia out there, but you know, it was endemic when I was in school. It was a real problem where, you know, I was the only out gay guy in my school, and I got taunted for it. I got, you know, mocked for it on a daily basis by students and teachers alike. And that kind of, you know, so for me, when I went from that situation and I moved off and I went off to college in Cardiff, to the Royal Welsh College, and all of a sudden I'd gone from the only gay guy in my school to being one of 3 in my class of 12, you know. And so, like, I guess when I say that it feels like, well, I guess what I mean is that, you know, for me especially, and for guys and girls in older generations, gay bars were the only place where you could be who you were. They were the only place where you felt safe to be. And going out into straight clubs nowadays, I still feel a little bit of, and you know, anticipation about it. I still feel like I wouldn't go to a straight pub with my boyfriend and feel comfortable to, like, hold his hand or give him a kiss, or he wouldn't feel comfortable with it anywhere. But you know, it's that kind of mentality is still there. And even walking down the street, you know, some places in the UK it's absolutely fine. You know, you can walk down the street, you can hold your fella's arm. Some, and in others you can't, you just can't, because you will get things said. It may be a passing comment, it might be someone shouting in your face, it may escalate even further than that. So having these kind of little pockets, it's like being a member of a very select club, you know, like an old-fashioned gentleman's club, but there's one in every town, and that is the place that you can go to, and you can just, you know, you're home already. You know what the deal is with everyone else that's in there, and they're comfortable with you and you're comfortable with them.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Nick. That's a brilliant answer. And when you think of a traditional rugby club, what images like come to mind?
Oh. Well, usually they're much better rugby players than me.
Surely not.
Yeah, well, you know, you know, well, there is. I've always got on very well with traditional rugby clubs. Like, you know, some could say that the idea of a traditional rugby club is about this kind of toxic masculinity side of things. And I do know, like, LGBT people, LGBTQ plus people who have gone into straight clubs and had a rough time with it, and they've had, you know, they've had the sort of the banter which can overstep the mark. They've had people say things inappropriately, but ultimately that's a rarity. I've always seen rugby as being one of the more inclusive kind of sports in general. But I mean, there's massive drinking culture, and that kind of goes with the gay bars as well. But yeah, I mean, I think, you know, that it's kind of, I've never been in a rugby club and felt like I shouldn't be there. But at the same time, I wouldn't necessarily want to play for one of those teams. I wouldn't necessarily feel like it was open to me, and I wouldn't necessarily want to be within one of those teams. And even just those sort of small elements of banter, when you've had that growing up, when you've lived it being, like these things being directed at you in a negative way, in a nasty way. Even the smallest things can kind of they strike a nerve, or they can sort of pinch a little bit. So I don't know. would be the summation of all of that.
That's a sensible answer overall. That leads you on for that. What did you think an LGBTQI plus rugby team would be like?
I had no idea at the time, absolutely none. I was recruited to the Outlaws by a chap called Mark, who basically walked up to me in the Boston on a Tuesday night, I think it was, and he basically said, "You look fit. Do you want to come and play rugby?" Now, I still to this day don't know if he was just trying it on with me, but like I was game for it. I thought to myself, I'll give it a go. I played rugby when I was a kid. I stopped in my teens because I didn't feel very comfortable doing it. I was going through sort of discovering myself at the time. But I always used to enjoy playing, and I remembered how to pass a ball. So I went along for the first night. I was a bit, there's a bit of anticipation about it, but everyone was absolutely lovely. I mean, really, really lovely. And the point was that I went along on my first time, like my first night. We were playing at Men's Own Rugby Club at the time. They'd just got to Men's Own after being upgraded from playing in the park. And yeah, everyone was really nice. We went through drills. I hit a tackle bag. I remembered how to do it. I remember where to aim for in the Gilbert kind of thing. And it was really good fun. And I felt good for having done it. Like I'd been in this really sort of weird place. When I joined the Outlaws, I was in a really bad way in some ways in my life, because I'd moved to London straight from uni, and I'd got a job here. This was the only place in my sector where you could get work, and I was kind of in a relationship that I'd been in for, at that point, 5 years, and we lasted another year, but things got a little bit bad, and he sort of became a very difficult person to be with, and we ended up splitting up. And at that point, I had sort of no friends in London. My job was on temporary contract that had come to an end, and we lived together. So I ended up sort of becoming friendless, homeless, and jobless all in one, and having to move back home, my family home up in Northamptonshire. And so, like, it had taken me, after the end of a 6-year relationship at that point, it took me about a year or so to actually go back out again, to think about going back onto any kind of gay scene, to even chat to other guys. And so my way of doing that was to kind of go out, and like it would be going out on a Friday night, drinking a lot, making friends with other people who frequented the pub a lot, and they were really good, and they supported me and got me through a lot of it. But it wasn't quite right for me, just that kind of idea of being just consistently being out in a place where you can drink. Kind of, for me, I don't have a great relationship with alcohol, and like it was causing me to feel like quite unfit, unwell, and I was probably drinking a little bit to excess at the time. And then I found the rugby team, was a way that I could go out and be with fresh faces, with new people, having fun, enjoying my time, learning how to play rugby again after all those years, being at the point in relative to some of the other players. All right, pretty good. And it was a safer space. It was a safer space which didn't revolve around alcohol as much, and kind of kept me fit, kept me active, and was enjoyable. So, you know, rugby for me came around at the right time and helped me to kind of balance myself. But I know that I wouldn't have even done that if it wasn't for that guy Mark meeting me in a gay bar and saying, "Come along and try rugby again." And so that's the whole idea. It's the inclusivity is not just defined by who the sport serves in terms of sexuality, in terms of gender, in terms of you know, the kind of the core tenets of a person. It's also about the approach. It's also about the fact that it's inviting. It's go out and find people and invite them into this world, rather than just being a stalwart standing place which expects people to come to it.
Leading on from that, have the Outlaws changed your perception of rugby at all?
I mean, they've taught me it's okay to lose every now and then.
Sure.
I'm a very competitive person. I still, you know, things like we do the Touch My Brum event, with a touch rugby tournament every year in Birmingham. And the first year we did it, we won it, and I was over the moon. You know, I had a gold medal. I was lauding it. The other teams called us cocky bastards because we were going around singing Spandau Ballet Gold to everyone. But actually, and in subsequent years, you know, we've taken two teams along, one which kind of takes it seriously and another which doesn't take it seriously at all. And I don't mind being in either now, which is refreshing for me. But in all honesty, it's you know, actually it's the relationship that the Outlaws has, not just with the other IGR inclusive teams, it's the relationship that Outlaws has with those established heterosexual teams. The fact that there is always kind of, they are as welcoming of the team. They have, you know, they're always keen to give us a game, maybe not against their top flight teams, but certainly we've played against the seconds, the thirds, the veterans, and they've given us, you know, a run for our money on times, and they've also seen what we can do. And there's a respect. There is, you know, in my business we talk about positioning, and there is positioning of the Outlaws as a respectable team that isn't just an IGR team, but is an established team. So I think that in some ways my perceptions of what an IGR team has changed, in that we kind of as a team are growing. We're looking at new ways that we can go out and be more inclusive, we can be more present, but also the team's kind of positioning within rugby as a whole has just increased and increased, and I've kind of grown with that.
That's fantastic. That's brilliant to hear. It's very interesting hearing what impact it has on you, certainly. And I know exactly what you mean. You'd love to win these games. You always do. I love to win it, but it's enjoying yourself as well. And
yeah,
always enjoyed myself. I'm sure you feel the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I enjoy winning a little bit more. Never play me at Monopoly, mate. Never play me at Monopoly.
No. Have you had, by the sounds of it, certainly, what sort of previous experience playing rugby had you had prior to joining the Outlaws?
Well, you know, I mean, I played I played in school in my first school. So we started rugby at about the age of 9, I think, and I played it through to I left that school at 13. In my next school, I had to do it for about 2 years, but then, you know, I think probably at around the age of 15, my heart wasn't in it in the slightest. And when I was a kid, I was a hooker because I was tiny, and that's what, you know, it was like 3-person scrums, and they were, you know, you had 2 slightly larger people who played as prop. And no, it was 5-person. It was 5-person. There was a second row as well. So 2 larger people that played a prop, but you had a scrawny, tiny little hooker who was usually, you know, the size of a jockey, and I fitted that role very well. And then when I sort of got into the next school, like all of a sudden we were up to 8-person scrums with, and all of the forwards were expected to be on the let's say the stronger side, and I was expected to kind of be in the backs, and I didn't know what I was doing back there at all. I had no idea, because, you know, beforehand, all I had to do was to kind of go in the scrum and maybe rock over a ball or two, and I didn't really know what I was doing then either. So, like, being kind of not really having that much interest in it, even though I loved kind of following it, and I went along and watched the Saints play week in, week out. I didn't have the kind of the love for playing the game, and so there was a good old, I would say there's probably a 8 to 10 year gap between me playing again, and that was with the Outlaws.
Blimey, okay.
Yeah, but I've been playing with the Outlaws for quite some time now. You know, I mean, this is the thing for me, is that I've always said, and I've lived in London now for must be 7 years. No, must be 8 years now. And I'm still playing for the Outlaws in Northampton, even though I live down here. And there's something about it. There's something about the fact that it's the family side of things. It's the fact that I know that if I come back, you know, I might play in the development team, or I might be benched for the majority of the match, but I know that I might get some kind of time on the pitch. And I always know that, like, if I'm up and wanted to, I could go along to the training, and there would be people there I know, people who would be kind of happy to see me, who would want to catch up, people I'd love to see as well. And that's the sort of, like, that kind of bond that I have with the team. It doesn't matter how far away I live. I don't have the kind of will to go and play for one of the teams more local to me, even of the IGR teams, because there's that kind of I wouldn't say tribalism, but more the connection that I have. It would feel like I was cheating on the Outlaws to go and play for someone else. And for any Outlaws that have gone on to play for other teams, you are cheats.
Outlaw for life.
Yeah, defo.
Well, some. And this is referencing what you said earlier, really, when you first introduced the Outlaws. But after your first training session with the Outlaws, how did you feel?
Oh, stoked. That's the only way I could say it. Absolutely stoked. And I didn't miss a training session for 3 years after that, including, no, that can't be right. No, it's got to have been 2 years. 2 years after that, including after I'd had my ankle sprained and my knee. I managed to tear a ligament in my knee, and I was on a crutch. Well, it was walking stick. I called it the bitching stick, and I was on that stick, and I would be standing there at the edge of the pitch watching the training sessions. I just fell in love with it. I fell in love with the sport again. I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with the team and the camaraderie. There was no There was no way that I wanted to miss just even, like, I had major FOMO. Not really. Like I knew that I could miss a thing. It's not like everyone would just assume I was dead if I wasn't there, or they wouldn't invite me to stuff. It was more the fact that I knew that every single time I was going during that time, I was learning something, whether it be about myself, whether it be about the game, whether it be about the people that I'd come to kind of love and respect as friends. I knew that there would always be a real massive benefit to me to be there. So stoked.
If there's someone watching this who was thinking of getting involved or was unsure of what benefit it might have to them, and they might be convinced they might want to know what it's about, what advice would you give them?
There's only one piece of advice I'd give, because I have had the conversation with people. Like, I've been at some of the recruiting events that we've done at the Outlaws, granted a fair while ago, but I've also spoken to people and told them about, the fact I play for an inclusive rugby team. And I ask them, if ever I ask them, would you ever consider doing it? What they usually say to me is that they just don't feel it's for them. And the piece of advice I would give is that there is absolutely no one on this planet who rugby isn't for in some way. And the point about an inclusive rugby team is that, you can work at whatever level you want to. It doesn't matter if you've never held the ball before. It doesn't matter if you trip over your own feet with every step you take. There's something that you can get out of becoming a part of it. You might find some hidden talent. There's all kinds of things that you can learn, the ways that you can develop. And the great thing about the Outlaws, the great thing about inclusive rugby, is that there are people there to help you discover that. There's people there to support you. And, whatever anticipation you have yourself about coming along to a first training session, I promise you that will disappear within 5 minutes.
I certainly speak for Simon, who's probably watching this and being recording this right now. That last couple of minutes is absolutely outstanding. I think that's absolutely encouraging, and everything you said hits the nail on the head. I never thought I would certainly ever play rugby, but it's certainly it's a sport for everyone. Completely, utterly agree with you. And summing up your thoughts of the Outlaws, just in 3 words, if at all possible. Take your time over this, and that's absolutely fine. If you could sum up the Outlaws in 3 words, what would they be?
Family, positivity, hilarity.
I was not expecting that last word, I must say.
Yeah. Well,
it's completely and utterly true.
It is true. I mean, I can speak for myself, but I mean, I think I'd be right in saying for you, Paul, that there has never been any kind of Outlaws get-together, training session, even chatting over Facebook Messenger with some of the players, where I haven't burst out laughing at some point. Or at least there is just the positivity side is not, it's about the feeling that you get when you're within the kind of the family. The 3 go together completely. And it's about positivity about everyone that they encounter, positivity about everyone who plays. And it's positivity that it makes you feel as well. But it is hilarious a lot of the time. There's some real characters. if you're out there, if you're thinking about it, just come along. It's brilliant.
There's a little bit of rugby thrown in here and there, but other than that, it's a good bit of fun.
Yeah.
Nick, it's been an absolute pleasure speaking to
My
you.
pleasure, Paul.
You're a fantastic interviewee. Looking forward to pass it on to the next player. Thank you very much.
That way.
Thank you for watching the interview with an outlaw. If you like what you saw, please click like. And if this is the first time you're here, why not hit subscribe for more from our channel? We release 5 every Friday, so let's see who will pass it on next.